Hi, I'm Mal from the Money Study, bringing you another episode of our Take 10 Challenge, number 91, the Bank of Mum and Dad, part 4. This is the last series in this little section on the Bank of Mum and Dad. There's our disclaimer, facts and figures, information only. It is not advice in today's video. Okay, let's have a look at it some other ways we might better help our children get into this property business. And it could be a case that we actually become a joint owner with them in their own home initially. So you might buy the house 50-50, in which case you've now got this property, and there could be some tax benefits depending on how this is all structured. Could be a 20-80 ownership depending on what you want to do. They could be paying you a modest rent depending on your portion and so forth, but it could mean you're using all of your equity, whatever, using your income, whatever the case may be, to effectively get this across the line. But the kids have got somewhere to live, and effectively it's part theirs, therefore they can look after it, you would hope. And of course, over time, they can buy you out. That could be the theory. They may never buy you out. They may think that, okay, this is our first home. We'll probably only be here for 3 or 4 years, and then we'll be looking for something bigger or better or whatever. In which case, then you can either keep together as an investment property, or probably more likely you would either buy it out for your as an investment property, or indeed you just sell it and use the money for whatever. So just another way of sort of thinking about it, that I do get a lot of parents who are looking for other investments and things and looking at an investment property. If the investment property can be used for the benefit of the children, there could be some benefits there. But certainly there are tax implications, so make sure you talk to your accountant about this, because obviously if there is money coming back to you, that's income, it's taxable income. And of course, if you then do turn around and sell it, even if it's a case that you sell it to them or they sell it all to you, whichever way it might work, that's a change of ownership, and there could indeed be some capital gains issues involved as well. So make sure you really, depending on how it's all set up, and before you jump into it, have a talk to your accountant as to what the best way to structure this to basically reduce the debt and reduce the taxes and liabilities and so forth. Obviously, in a joint ownership, if any joint sort of asset, if one person reneges, one partner doesn't do their bit, the other owner is basically responsible for all of the debt. So if you went in halves with your children and then they did a runner for whatever reason, or there was a falling out, you would be basically left with the full debt, because it's, as a joint ownership, you're fully responsible for everything if it's in a joint arrangement there. Obviously, you'd need to make sure some sort of issues for estate planning as to what would happen if either of your children or you died during this process. It could become quite messy as far as the estate is concerned if there are other children involved and so forth. So again, make sure that you've been talking to your solicitor around your estate if you were indeed helping your children out down this sort of path. There is another way of becoming a joint owner. So rather than buying it as joint, as like a partnership arrangement, we actually do it as tenants in common. Now, what tenants in common means is that, therefore, if one partner dies, no, that part of it is not, you don't inherit the debt. The other half would go to the estate of the person who has died. Now, that could obviously cause you problems if your parents have died and they leave the money to a different sibling or another child or something, whereas the other child is living in the house and now the other half of the house is owned by a brother or sister they don't even like. So all sorts of ramifications and complications involved in this, but with a good functional family, and depending on their incomes and where they're at in life and what they're trying to achieve, could indeed be could be useful all the way around. Could be a win-win depending on the family sort of setup there. It could be just a case that you just buy it outright, so you just buy the property as an investment. Your child then pays you rent. So they move into your investment property. They've got no ownership in it at that point in time. You're collecting the rent so you can claim all the tax deductions and so forth. Hopefully the rent, is covering all your costs, but you may be able to give your children, a reduced rent. Reduced rent could mean you're getting less taxable income, in which case there could be heavily negative gear, which may be useful to you depending on where you are in life. But over time, it could be a case that they can then start to add to the rent to effectively buy it off you. Or indeed you then turn around and just literally sell it to them, or you just sell it and they go off and do something else. But it just could be a case that if you want to get them out of the house and having their own separate property gives them their own sort of privacy. You can get some tax deductions, and then it comes down to later on what you're actually going to do with this property. Whether you just keep it as investment property, whether you sell it to them, it's all totally up to you. And of course, it could be a case that you're collecting the rent from them, but you actually put it into account and you're just saving that money back up again to turn around and give it back to them. All sorts of different ways this could be done, obviously depending on your situation. But if you are going to use an investment property, at least you would hope that by having your children move into it, that they would certainly hopefully look after it. Perhaps they might keep it tidier than their own bedroom. I'm not too sure about that, but the theory is there that could be something quite useful in that regard. There's another also a thought pattern here is that your kids want to buy a house. They want to buy in an area, but they can't really afford that area. It's really just a bit out of their price range and so forth. So there is this sort of thing called rent vesting, where you basically help them to buy an investment property. It's not their own home. You're helping them to buy an investment property. You might be going cahoots with them in an investment property or something like that. And you buy this investment property in a good area, the area they would like to move into eventually. And so you're getting good capital gains and so forth on that property. But they are, the children, indeed, either living with you or renting in a much cheaper area. And so that the property could be making you good money with good capital growth and some good rental return, but they are sort of saving money by renting somewhere cheaper eventually to then move into it themselves. So it's just another way of just considering the options. And as it comes down to the trouble with these sort of things is you never really know what suburb is going to do well in the future. You can get all this information off all sorts of websites on good suburbs to buy in and so forth. But all of those sort of reports, I've worked out what suburbs have done well in the last 3 years or 5 years or whatever. Does that mean it's going to continue to grow? It could be other things impacting that all of a sudden that's not the case. So it's anything that we are sort of pinning our strategy on future growth and income and so forth is always, we can't guarantee it's going to work. But in theory, if we're buying this investment property in a property that they would like to move into anyway, it's a nice area, then really this is probably achieving the goal. Whether it achieves our financial goals is another thing we will only know probably really there in hindsight. It could be a case that we don't do anything initially to help them get in. We really don't have enough assets. We might not even have any equity. We might be renting ourselves, in which case we just don't have the money as a lump of money to help them. We don't have equity to help them. But it could mean that our super, we don't want to spend our super, but it could be a case that our cash flow isn't too bad with our mixture of our age pension, bit of savings, bit of super. We're doing okay, and we do indeed find that we've got a little bit of money left over. Well, look, that's how you may be able to help them. You may be able to help them once they're into the house to assist them to help pay that thing down faster by perhaps paying for childcare costs, or basically, being the child carer yourself. Be the grandparent that looks after the kids so they don't have to spend money on childcare, and that's certainly a huge saving to your kids as well. So long as they do understand that they're not going to abuse this. This is, you are indeed, eating into your own cash flow, spoiling how many holidays you might be able to have to help them. But if you are helping them out in other ways by babysitting and this sort of stuff, yeah, let it be known. Let it be known that you're doing this to assist them. But you may not be able to do it all the time. There will be restrictions, and that you feel free that you can say no. So, I think any of those sort of things where you're helping out, always put parameters around it. Always put some sort of restriction, some sort of a caveat that in case things just don't work out, how you thought they might. Nothing worse than saying, yeah, I'll do that, and then finding out it really is beyond your capacity, either financially or even mentally. But by able to, it may be a case that, you can give them a bigger Christmas present, something a bit in cash, so to help them out through a thing, or it could be help them with a medical expense or whatever it may be. So just helping them out with the cash flow once they're already into the house is just as probably, a time when they're probably going to need it and would probably appreciate it. I would imagine, hopefully, a lot. Okay, all of those things, that's four sessions we've now talked about the bank of mum and dad. Lots of ideas there, but I say before you jump in with any of them, make sure it doesn't impact you too much, and obviously get professional help if it means we're getting into some sort of a legal arrangement there. Look forward to talk to you on another session.